人々の盾となろう。最後まで立っているのはこの私だ。
Hello, I'm Silveroxis, and another unit also releasing this week for Octopath Traveler Champions of the Continent is Greig, the Indomitable Warrior, the third Solistian Gen Pool unit. Third for us, she was the first one for the other servers, but you know, whatever. So, overviewing what she can do, she is a warrior, but her main role is a tank. Her special abilities is that the more she gets hit, the stronger she gets. So preferred weapons would be, you can give her the Cosmic Sword for that 300 HP regen and some damage cap. Fortunate Swords for P-Attack if you really want to squeeze more damage out of her, out on her EX skill. But otherwise, she just uses single hits that slams cap, so Brilliant Swords are also great as well. Her preferred accessories would be HP gear for living longer, P-Attack and damage cap boosting gear so her nukes do a bit more damage if you can spare them while she's tanking. So for her passive skills, she gains a passive 15% physical and magic defense up, and when she takes damage from enemies, she gains 1 Indomitable point. It's important to note that damage taken from counterattacks will not give Indomitable points. Her next passive is she gains the following passive buffs to herself depending on the number of Indomitable points she has. When she has 3 points, she gains 15% sword damage up. Once she has 6 points, she'll have another 15% passive physical and magical defense up, so she'll have a capped passive defense up at 6+ points. That's very good for damage mitigation. And at 9+ points, she'll gain an additional 15% physical resistance up, which is a very not as much a common of a buff to see, but since, as you know, you can debuff the enemy's physical resistance with different skills, so she's basically resistant to all their physical hits now as well. So that's even more damage mitigation. Against specifically physical attacks. Against magic, she's not as good. And then her TP skills, at the start of battle, she provokes all enemies for 3 turns. It's not super amazing because she does have a priority taunt skill, but it means you just don't have to use it for 3 turns, I guess. So the key thing to notice about Indomitable points is that it's just a permanent unique stack of points like other units you might have seen have that enhance her skills and her passive. They do not reset if she is killed and gets revived. So moving on to her skills, for her base kit, she has a 1-hit single target sword, a 2-hit single target fire. That's actually her only magic skill, not that you're going to be using that. Basic 1-hit AoE sword. And then moving on to 2-star, she has a reduced 1 instance of incoming damage from enemies by up to 50 to 80% based on boost level. So this is really good if you know an enemy has like a Giga Nuke, like for example if you're fighting Largo, he has a really strong like Giga Nuke that does like over 5,000 damage to units. She could use this and just tank the entire thing and barely take anything from it. She has a front row 20% physical and magical defense up buff for 2 to 5 turns. And then she has her classic taunt skill, a priority AoE provoke all foes, and grants self 15% passive active physical and magic defense up for 2 turns. And at 6-star, which if you pull her on her active banner, her 6-star upgrade will change this buff effect from 15% to 30%. So basically, once she has 6 Indomitable points, she'll be walking around with capped 30% passive defense and be able to have active 30% defense up as well. Her 4-star skill, she can give herself 30% max HP up and self-regen with pretty decent regen strength. And the skill board enhancement will increase the duration from 3 to 6 to 4 to 7 turns, so it'll last a while, allowing her to have even more HP to take more hits. Her 5-star skills, she has a 1-hit AoE sword that with 3+ points gets 10% stronger. At 6+ points, it also will inflict 15% physical defense down. And at 9+ points, it will also inflict 15% physical attack down. So basically, this is like a good skill she could do to hit all enemies and apply some debuffs to help support a little bit in the fight. And then she also has a 1-hit single target sword. That's her main nuking option. That just as she gets more points, it gets stronger, 20%, 30%, and then ultimately 50% stronger with 9 points. This will super slam cap, but it's also an option to throw out so if she's not getting a whole bunch of buffs to do some okay damage as well. And her TP skill, she can give herself self auto revive, and she'll revive with 20 to 50% of her max HP and SP depending on the boost level. She can only use this skill up to 3 times per battle. It's okay, but generally speaking, you never really want to plan for dying, so it's kind of niche. For her EX skill and ultimate technique, her EX skill has 2 total uses, and it's unlocked when she has at least 3 Indomitable points, and it also improves with more Indomitable points, so you're gonna want to wait, because it's a 2-hit AoE sword, but with 6 and then 9 Indomitable points, it'll do 4 and then 6 hits instead. So you want to wait till she has 9 points to be able to use this to do 6-hit AoEs twice per battle. That makes this her actual best skill to use. Her ultimate technique is a damage class ultimate, so it requires at least 4 BP to charge from level 8. It's called Unyielding Sword, and it's just a 1-hit AoE sword Giga Nuke that just gets stronger with more Indomitable points, 10% to 20%, and then 40% stronger with 9 points. But also with 9+ points, it'll also inflict 10% sword resistance down for 2 turns. Ultimate resistance down is not a very common buff, so that is very debuff, so that's a very potent thing. It'll scale to 1 times 450 base power and 15% sword res down at ultimate level 10. And even though this is a rare debuff, is still a damage class ultimate, and she has a very good A4, so I would leave this at ult 9, and any dupe should go towards her getting her A4 first. And speaking of that, for her Awakenings and A4 accessory, A1 as a pure tank with meaty single hits, A1 isn't actually super necessary. A2 is a luxury, but it's useful to have more tank options. A3 is good because tanks love having more HP because they are taking all the hits. And then her A4 accessory is called the Gauntlets of the Unbroken. It gives 600 HP and then 40 physical defense and 40 magic defense. It also gives to self 15% max HP up and self 50,000 damage cap up. And so for her A4 tier rating, this is an S tier A4. Yes, this general pool unit has an amazing A4. Damage cap up is always in high demand, and you can never get enough of it. On top of that, this accessory also improves the survivability of units by granting 600 HP and 15% max HP up to take even more hits. The only flaw is that it doesn't give any physical attack or magic attack to help the DPSs hit harder, but either way, it is an extremely good A4. I probably wouldn't chase it because it's on a general pool unit with rubies, but it's definitely useful to take any dupes you ever get towards getting it and not shard them. For an optimal skill layout for her, she's going to want to take her taunt skill. That also caps her defense at 6 star, because her TP taunt's going to run out, so she needs her taunt skill to keep enemies focused on her. I would then take her 1-hit AoE sword that also applies debuffs when she has Indomitable points, because that way she could do some decent damage, a little less than the 1-hit nuke, but since it's still 1-hit and pretty strong, it's going to be fine on break for damage, and it can help with debuffs to just add a little bit of support to your team. For her third skill, you can take the reduced 1 instance of damage 50 to 80%, so you can tank even the strongest enemy nukes in the game. And then if you do happen to have A2, or you want to swap it in as well, you can give herself max HP buff plus regen to keep her healthy and more HP to be able to take more hits. As for unit synergy, she's good for to have like backpack units like Rinyu and Alana EX, or other back row regen passive units that give like regen to the front row. Are great, as she can stay front row to protect them, and since she tanks, getting a bonus regen to keep her healthy could also be useful. Primrose EX or other regen casters to keep Greig healthy is also important. Thieves for breaking like Canary with anti-attack specifically to help cap damage mitigation, because that way as she tanks, she takes even less damage. And then obviously since she's your tank, you can use her in a lot of potential comps. So you just need to obviously have your DPS build set up for winning the fight, because Greig is here to tank, not do a ton of damage herself. So whether you should pull or not to pull, plus how I would rate her, Greig is an interesting unit. She's a very good tank, very hard to kill. She unfortunately does need to take hits to get her kit online, but once she does her job extremely well. It's just the issue is that's all she does. She only tanks it, and it also doesn't really help that she's releasing alongside Kilns, who is literally like the best face tank in the game with far superior support options compared to Greig. Also, Cecil, who is the other best face tank in the game, comes later on 100% for free, and is just a better tank than her. So like her literal best use is just existing to get your hands on her A4 eventually, unfortunately. So like, yeah, as always, if you love the unit, you can ignore Pull of Ice and pull and have fun your way. But I would recommend as a tier 4 player to skip. She's a general pull unit. Try to spook her later. Wait for Cecil, maybe even get Kilns instead. Tier 3, same reasons, skip. Tier 2, even as a Dolphin and even as a Spender some, I'd probably still skip. I'm going to skip myself because I likely can spook her later. There's Gen Pool selectors and anniversaries. Her A4 is great, and if you really, really wanted and need it, you can consider it because the pity is only 100 each, but it's not something that I think is worth it personally myself. And then tier 1, if you're a whale, you go for the A4. It's an STR4, damage cap is great, but you don't ever need ult 10 though, but you can take it if you're a collector, I guess. So for her overall rating, for her DPS, I'd rate it as a C+, support C. She doesn't have any healing, and for tank, I'd give her an S. Overall tier rating for her, it would be a B-. And that's all there is to know about Greig. She showed up in Oberic's Octopath Traveler 1 story, and then somehow found her way in Solistia in COTC. I don't know how that makes sense, but that's where she's at. And I hope you have any luck pulling for her if you decide to go for her. Please let me know below if you did or you skipped. And please let me know if there's any other kind of content you'd like to see. Otherwise, please like, follow, and subscribe for more COTC content in the future. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for watching. See ya.